Generation 3, a generation where Fire Red and Leaf Green, the first remakes of Pokemon Red and Blue, came out. Fire Red and Leaf Green, in my opinion, were denoted by very square-looking maps. Squares and rectangles are what we as a human population would refer to as shapes. This was because the remakes wanted to stay close to Generation 1. But that does not mean that throughout Gen 3 as a whole, we didn't have interesting tile sets. And if y'all could bear with me for a second, my interest today is to talk about some very interesting tile sets, maps, and thingy-majigs in Generation 3, as well as some lazier ones and some, messed up ones you might not have really noticed. Let's start off first with Rust Turf Tunnel. Now, you might not think Rust Turf Tunnel is very interesting at all. You might look at it and be like, yeah, it's a cave full of Whismur. The Pokemon with a butthole. What do you want out of me? But let's clear our minds for a second. And also, let's clear the fog for a second, because when you clear out the weather that exists on this map, it gets to be a little bit interesting. Because if you look carefully at the actual tile set of this cave, it's very unique. And other caves in Gen 3 have extremely unique tile sets as well, like Diglett Tunnel. Is it called Diglett Tunnel? I can't even remember if it's called Diglett Tunnel. Cerulean Cave, Meteor Falls. But this map looks kind of like a Gen 2 map, and it's monotone color choice. And again, I know other caves are all brown, but this one is like green, and that's it. As well as its like tile design choice. Instead of every wall tile of the cave being made up of 4 little sub-tiles, and bear with me, I'm making this up, like the terminology kind of as I go here. Every tile is made up of 4 8x8 squares. Instead of having like one image that's made up of those 4 8x8 squares, we have essentially just a bunch of ledges. Like, this isn't even cave walls. This is just Gen 2, Gen 1 style ledges lined up to make a wall. And this really shows when you look at the corners where 2 walls meet. Because other cave tile sets will specifically have like a corner tile. This one doesn't. It's super weird. It's way different than any other cave tile set we see in Gen 3. It looks like it was a beta design for a cave, and they slapped fog on it and slapped a bunch of Whismurs with their buttholes open, maybe where the fog's coming from on it, and called it good. They just said, all right, no, I like it with the fog. Now it works. And you know what? It kind of does. I didn't think anything of this tile set when I played it when I was a kid. And even now, I didn't really notice until I opened it in a map editor. It's so weird. It's so interesting. I love it. The next map I want to look at is a map in Slateport City. It's Stern's Shipyard, where you meet up with Doc and he goes, my head hurts. Can you go to the museum? Specifically in Stern Shipyard, it's the 2nd floor, which is not a place you ever really need to go to. There's nothing significant on the 2nd floor in Stern Shipyard. You only ever really need to go here during a playthrough to this building, to go to the 1st floor to talk to this dude scratching his damn noggin. What's really weird about this one, and what I really love about this map, is that you can see into the 1st floor, which is not something typically done in Gen 1, 2, or 3. Usually, they just fill this up with background tiles. You know, like when you have a wall or you have a ceiling, or you look at like Sky Pillar and it's just a pit. In Stern Shipyard, you can see onto the 1st floor as a perfect match from what is actually on the 1st floor, to the point where there's actually an NPC that's on this map that does nothing. You can't interact with them. It's not the guy from downstairs in actuality, because this is a different map. This is just an empty NPC you cannot talk with. And it's only there for the sole purpose to try to add this wonky perspective like you can see onto the 1st floor. Knowing that you never have to enter this map, it's just extra detail for no reason, and it's so wild. It's so interesting. I'm sure I'm the only person in the world who cares that much about Stern's Shipyard 2nd floor, but I love this map. Now let's talk about some tall areas, starting with the top of Setopolis in Route 126. Did you know that there's actually a crater on the map in the tile set? Did you know this is here? Probably not, because you can't see it. Why'd they add it? I don't know, maybe they expected you to see it. Maybe they thought the camera was bigger than it actually was. I don't know. But it's there. And Setopolis by itself already kind of demands attention as you're going through this big fat ocean, not sure where to go when you're a kid, kind of lost, hoping that you can reach any land ever without, perishing of a lack of food or water. And you run into these white rocks that look different from everything else. But even beyond that, now there's this really cool part in the top, and you can't even damn see it. That's too bad. Similar to Setopolis, though, let's talk about the tall buildings in Kanto in general, because in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, typically when you run into a tall building, there's no top to it. You don't see the top, and they didn't tile the top. This is true for the Battle Tower. This is true for the department store. This is true for Evergrande City. But in Kanto, we have lots of tall buildings with extremely unique and interesting tile sets, like Silphco or Pokemon Tower or the Celadon department store that are such big standouts. And the fact that the player can view all of them in-game and even get behind them and run around, that's cool. I like that. That's a fun detail. They didn't have to do that. Well, maybe they did because you can kind of see everything in red and blue. But I don't know. What's interesting about Fire Red and Leaf Green is every single town gets their own like type of a house that matches the color scheme based on the name of the town. Like Cerulean gets blue houses. Vermilion gets orange houses. Lavender gets purple houses. But despite that fact, none of them feel like purposeful. It's not a detail you necessarily notice in a playthrough. It's not like this standout like, whoa, oh my god thing. But these giant buildings just feel so special and purposeful because they're extra big with extra little details. I think the best example of this in Gen 3, however, is the Mossdeep Space Center. And to the same effect, you can walk around the entire Space Center, get behind there with the rocket if you want to. All the full perimeter of the building, you have access to that on the outside. And they even went to the level of adding the rocket ship behind it, which I think they didn't have to do that, and they did, and it looks so good, and it looks so cool. What you might not notice as an extra little detail is that the doorway and the windows are actually shaped like a rocket ship. And you can actually tell by the roof tile, where you get that weird strip in the middle separating the satellite from the telescope thing. There's that little triangular piece of the window. They did not have to add in there. That wasn't a repetition of the tile set. That was one they just threw into the roof, and it gives it a pointy piece. What a unique looking building. What a wild looking building. Route 104. Route 104 is unique for a lot of reasons. One of which is that it has two houses, Mr. Briney's house and the flower shop, that are completely unique to anywhere in the region. And it's not the only place in Gen 3 to do this. There are other locations that have unique houses and buildings and structures that exist outside of cities and whatever. That's not what I'm talking about for this one though. The part that I'm really interested in is the water tiles in Route 104. Route 104 has a pond that you have to travel across with the double battle on the bridge to introduce double battles to the player, but for whatever reason, there is a body of water with a unique tile set animation here that isn't used anywhere else in Gen 3. It is the only place in Gen 3 that gets this water tile set and this water animation. And it's a really pretty one. I'm sure it's one they could have repurposed for other locations, and I don't know why they didn't. I have no idea. Maybe they did this one last and they were like, it, we're gonna ball out for Route 104. It's one you could pass by and never think about again. You see another pond in like Petalburg and you don't even think about it. You think it's the same thing, but it's not for no reason. That's so weird. Now I want to talk about Lilycove City, which I could talk about the department store. I could talk about the museum here, but no. What I really want to talk about is that weird little tiny lighthouse thing in the bottom right of the map. What is this? Is it a lighthouse? I don't know. Gen 2 told us that a lighthouse has like 50 floors and trainers on all of them. This thing is about a little, like maybe a foot taller than the player. What is this? Is it a lamp? I don't know what this is. If you go through Lilycove City kind of optimally, you can completely miss this detail. It's so hidden away in the corner, and the only use for this little area is to get one not that great item. And I want to point out too that Slateport also has a lighthouse, but there's a pretty high chance that you'll run into it because you're coming up from the beach. If you just come up from the right side, boom, you hit the lighthouse. Lilycove, there's just a chance you never ever see this, and it's just an extra little detail. You know what, now that I'm thinking about it too, has anyone ever like paid attention to this one house on the right side and how the only way to gain access to it is by jumping ledges, and the only way back to the city is by jumping ledges, which also in turn means that the only way to access the beach in the town is by jumping ledges? How do the old people get to the beach? Is this old man the owner of this house? I don't know. Does the guy who owns this house, is the beach his property? Are we trespassing if we go to the beach? I don't understand it. How does anyone enjoy living in this city? Why don't they have better pedestrian access? Let's talk about the Oceanic Museum in Slateport. At first glance, okay, it may not seem that special. I mean, it's like a one pattern floor. They have a few different, not that exciting exhibits on the floor. But I think the Oceanic Museum has a lot more detail in it than people might first expect. What I like about the Oceanic Museum is that the two floors are very very different. They don't share any displays except for the cylinder displays. All the other displays are different. The wall displays are different. The floor displays are different. There's that weird thing on the first floor where it's like got the wizard's orb on the wall that you ponder. And you would think without really paying attention, like that exhibit in the top left of the first floor would be the same as the one in the top right. You would think these would be the same thing, but they're not. They went to extra detail for no reason. Even the counters have unique tiles on them for no reason. Why? It's like an unnoticeable detail, and it's so interesting. They went the extra mile to do nothing, and it needs to be noticed. Here's another couple of quick mentions I want to do just for a moment. I also want to shout out Mount Ember Summit's path, second floor. I think that's what it's called. And it's interesting because it's such a high level of detail for Kanto, which, like I said at the beginning, is known for being very blocky and reminiscent of Gen 1, where it had to be blocky. You don't get to notice this as a player being kind of limited to your razor-thin path that you follow to get to the center of the volcano, but there is such a high level of detail on this map. It is way bigger than you'd think it was, and for what reason? For fun. The last one I want to mention real quick is One Island Treasure Beach. And there's lots of little details where patches of grass touch the sand with some fun mapping here. Notably, in Fire Red, there's only 4 places in the game where the beach touches the sand. Meaning beach specifically by denoting like when you can see footsteps on the yellow sand. One of them is in Kanto on Route 19, right where it hits Fuchsia City. And the other 3 are Resort Gorgeous, Bond Bridge, and Kindle Road. And even more interesting than that is the fact that beaches in Kanto, meaning specifically beaches where the water hits the sand hits the water, there's no ledge that blocks the two inconveniently, only exist in Kanto on those little tiny islands on Route 21 and Route 20, not including the Articuno caves. Which makes up 0 notable or even really that useful of locations until the Sevii Islands. Just another weird design choice, because it doesn't match Gen 1, which tells me they have the freedom to do it in other places, but they didn't do it in other places. Let's get into some lazy Game Freak maps now. This is where the meat and the potatoes are, ladies and gentlemen. Fellas, let's talk about everyone's most hated place in Gen 3, perhaps. The Scorched Slab. Why is it here? It's boring. You get Sunny Day. They could have put that anywhere. Why is Scorched Slab here? I don't know. Why did they call it the Scorched Slab? I don't know. I kind of wish we got to see something really cool here, but unfortunately, no. We get Sunny Day and that's it. Water Labyrinth. This is water with a bunch of rocks copied and pasted all over the place. It looks like a fan game map. It looks like somebody made a ROM hack and didn't put a lot of thought into it. That's my thoughts on the matter. Pattern bush. A fucking rectangle with grass that's in a rectangle. Neat. And look, I don't want to go too hard on this last one because I'm sure everyone knows this, but the maze area on Indigo Plateau, and this is a symptom of Gen 1, but it's maybe the laziest map in Kanto. It looks so lazy. It's not a hard maze. There's one item available. It looks super ugly. Why is it there? I don't know. Maybe originally it was going to have trainers on it akin to Route 13, and they scrapped it. I don't know. Maybe they said Victory Road was enough. I'd take it back. Just leave it in post. Let's get into my favorite part of what I will be talking about today. Tile errors. And look, the tile errors I'm going to be pointing out are extremely picky, okay? They are nitpicky as hell, and I live with them forever in my brain whenever I play the game. And now you will forever too when you play the game. This is your problem I'm passing on to you. It's like manually breathing or blinking, or you feeling your tongue in your mouth, which you're also now doing, so you're welcome. There are little itty bitty unnoticeable tile mistakes all over Hoenn, and for the most part these are super excusable. For example, on Route 111, on a tile where the north side of a cliff meets a cliff wall by the pond, you can clearly see it uses the wrong tile compared to the ones that are correct right below it. Easy mistake. I'll give it a free pass. In Fall Arbor Town, the Fossil Maniac's house has an incorrect background tile on the left side of the house where that cliff is. And a similar mistake is even more glaring on the backside of the battle tent. In Slateport, above the Pokemon fan club, the edge of the water just kind of cuts off with a grass tile due to a piece of fence sitting on the foreground layer. And real quick, I'm going to mention tiles in the game are made up of background and foreground layers that you can stack on top of each other. And if there's a transparent palette being used on the foreground layer, then it'll show the background layer. That's kind of a quick gist of it. Let's get into some more criminal mistakes. On the connection between Route 125 and Mossdeep City, there's an error where the maps meet. Somehow in only Pokemon Emerald, this is not in Ruby and Sapphire. This rock got goofed. Look at that. That's not right. My immersion is broken. Maybe everything got adjusted in Emerald by like one tile, and then they just like forgot and didn't realize they made the mistake. I wasn't there when they made it, but that could very well be the case. Let's talk about a whole tile map error that gets reused in every single map that uses this tile set. And to make the example, we would be using Cycling Road in Hoenn, those houses that are on Cycling Road that you can bike through as example, because I want to pick on this man who won't let me go through if I don't have a bike. I'm a big boy. I can do what I want. There's one single tiny pixel of pink in the corner of the counter on both sides. It's because there's no background tile beneath the counter tile. This is an error. You can say what you want. You can be like, oh, this is a laser that detects the bike. But I know the secret. I am not privy to your propaganda. I know the secret, and that's a mistake. That's an error, and that's something you're going to have to think about every time you go through Cycling Road now. You're welcome. It's imperfect. It's dirty. It's gross. Speaking of imperfect, let's talk about Cerulean City, but more specifically, let's talk about Nugget Bridge. And every time I come here, I mention this on stream because it bugs me so much. To the right of Nugget Bridge, there's a ledge providing a one-way path to get back to Cerulean when you get to Bill's house. On the far left side of this ledge, what's that? What underneath the ledge? It's pitch black. This is because the bridge is being used as a foreground tile and the ledge is being used as a background tile. But there's transparency on the ledge. So instead of having grass in the background, it's just nothing. It's just the void. So now forever we get to look at this mistake every time we go on Nugget Bridge, which is a required location of the game. So you're always, every time you play through the game, you're going to see this. You're welcome. It's going to bug you forever. You're welcome. This is likely also why, by the way, docks are kind of designed weird. If you look at Route 12, all the feet on the docks always touch the ledge and the water, even though they're on different heights, technically. And I think that's because it covers up the fact that the ledge is not there. That way you don't get any void in the tile set. It's covering the void. And lastly, we're going to talk about some jail-worthy mistakes. Some ones that I find unforgivable. Starting with the Cave of Origin. Down where you meet Wallace in Pokemon Emerald. Specifically, this is in Pokemon Emerald. What the f*** is this? Why are there corner tiles and wall tiles in this cave in the wrong place? That's not a wall. What the f***? This is a mess. And finally, the last tile set I'm going to show you is the fountain in Rustboro City. Unforgivable! Vile! Despicable! What is going on with this shadow? Just don't include the shadow if it's not gonna make sense. It's not an L-shaped fountain. It's an angled fountain. Just make an angled shadow or get rid of the shadow altogether. Nobody would notice. Nobody would notice. But here I am forever. Every time I go past this stupid fountain now, I'm gonna be looking at this and I'm gonna be vomiting. I'm gonna be vomiting in my mouth. I'm gonna be vomiting in my mouth. I'm gonna puke. Absolutely unforgivable. Jail. This is jail. Put them in jail. Anyways, I'm a big weirdo who spent too long looking at different tile sets in Pokemon. Hit the subscribe button if you think that's cool. If you think it's not cool, too bad. Do it anyways. Bye-bye.